Morning, Bob. Citizens for a Better Broome podcast. A day or two late on doing the recording.
Yeah, good morning, Andy. Good morning, listeners. It's actually we're doing this on St. Patrick's morning. So a belated happy St. Patrick's Day. You won't hear this for a few days, but as Andy said, Citizens for a Better Broome. You can find us on Facebook. We try to post up there as much as we can, keep current, and what we don't post there, we post at bobkingsley.com for a lot of the written material. Try to keep you up to date on what's going on in Broome County. And with that said, Andy, what do you got for us to start off?
Well, a couple things in the headlines. Last week, Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan DA, released another murderer with no bail into the general population. I wonder where Hochul, the governor, she must be in hiding, because she had talked about looking at the bail reform and what they could do to stop this spiraling violence that is infecting, well, a lot of all the major cities in the U.S., primarily we're talking about New York City, but she hasn't done a thing. In fact, it seems when she's running for office now, I think what she's talking about was what Biden was saying when he was running, anybody but Trump. And this is the same thing what the Hochul is talking about, anybody but Andrew Cuomo. So you have to elect me because I'm not him.
The bail reform actually statewide, of course, but here in Broome County, it affects us too dramatically. I mean, I work in the legal field. There's a component of the bail reform law that has to do with the technicalities of how information gets exchanged between the defense team and the prosecution team. And those timelines have been tightened so dramatically. There's consequences for not abiding by them, and the consequences are dismissal many times. So to make it simple, grab up a drug dealer, a accused drug dealer, and you have just a few days, really like 3 weeks, to come up with a complete package back to the defense team as to what your proof is. If you can't do that and you don't hit those deadlines, it's dismissible. That's what's happening is a lot of, I see these cases where these guys are just walking.
What are the attorneys doing? What is their take on the attorneys that are, or the prosecutors for that matter?
Well, I've been to seminars because when this law first came out, it was a lot of, obviously all the practitioners on both sides wanted to know, what the hell does this mean? And even people on the prosecutorial side were scratching their heads saying, holy crap, this is going to really gum up the system, number one, because it accelerates these times so dramatically. I think in a lot of cases, I would say they've just kind of thrown up their hands and said, the volume of work we've got is so significant, we can't do it. And it has a ripple effect, Andy, because once the cops see that this happens, then they start to second guess, why bother at all?
Right.
In other words, why put on body armor and risk breaching some guy's house that you might get shot going in, if only at the end of the day, the guy ends up walking because of discovery rules that say that you weren't quick enough in giving us the information we needed. So it's not as simple as bail reform. It really does ripple down through the system in a way that cripples the whole system.
Well, it's fairly obvious that throughout the state, these assemblymen and these senators like it. They like the system. They like the how our system is being torn apart from within.
Yeah, there's a certain element that is hell bent on saying, we have fewer prisons. We have fewer jails. There's fewer people in prison. Yeah, that's great, except there's more criminals on the street.
Exactly.
They just closed statewide 6 or 7 major prisons. One pretty much near us there, Willard, which was a shock incarceration camp, which you put in guys that were kind of on the edge, trying to basically shock them back into reality by making their life miserable. This idea of just simply closing prisons without consequence, I don't know. It must win votes or something, but it's not good for society in my view.
Well, moving on, another famous elected official back in the news is Andrew Cuomo. I just mentioned his name earlier here. Is apparently his staffers and supporters are pushing him to run for governor. Governor Hochul was cornered at an event a couple of days ago, and she said that I'm not entertaining that. when she was asked about how she would handle a potential challenge from Cuomo. You got to give the Cuomos as well their credit. Even Chris Cuomo is suing CNN now for 195 million. They're just not going to let it go. They're going to fight it to the end.
Well, I hope it is the end. I mean, they just have to go. It's been so refreshing to not have to look at either one of them for a couple of months, and now their mugs are starting to pop up again in the public domain. It's a freaking mafia.
Well,
nobody's got the appetite for it. I just don't know. How do you, I don't know. There's no shame. I guess that's the best way to say it.
Well,
no shame
that's
for either
it.
one of them.
And it gets back Andrew Cuomo's handling of the COVID fiasco here is that another Hochul is setting up an independent review now of for the COVID investigation as far as the nursing home
to do with election politics.
I'm sure. Well, it's probably doing this to get an end run around Cuomo if he decides to come out. And with this investigation percolating up through, she wants to dirty him up a little bit in the event that he does run.
That's the beauty of politics, Andy, is we can sweep under the rug 5,000 plus people being sent to their death by bad decision making. But we'll let that go. But if you run against me, we're going to open it up. I mean, that's
exactly.
There's impetus to do something like that, not on what's right and wrong or what's moral or what's immoral or what's legal or illegal, but how can I win?
Well, the new controller's audit says that Cuomo administration undercounted the number of nursing home deaths in New York by at least 4,100. Back the whisper numbers, 15,000 deaths in nursing homes. Now they're going to add another, let's call it 5,000, maybe 20,000. It's a tragedy, and they're progressives. I'm surprised they're not lynching these people.
Well,
and they tolerate it.
Speaking of nursing homes, don't we own one here in Broome County?
Exactly. Big vote today at 5 p.m.
Yeah, right. That's what I was getting at is whether or not the legislature in Broome County is going to approve a contract with an outside provider to manage the facility and give them an option to buy it for pennies on the dollar, from what I understand. Isn't that right?
And within 6 years. They'll have a 6 years lockup period if the Broome County legislature signs this contract for $7 million. For the next 6 years, Broome County's locked in by having just one vendor available or one entity that will buy the nursing home if they do decide to send it down the road. You have to ask yourself, and Garner calls it a good deal. This is a good deal for taxpayers.
Well, what about the significance of 6 years? Think about the electoral cycle for people.
Exactly.
Okay.
And inflation.
So all of a sudden it's off my plate for the whole time I want to be in office, right?
Yeah.
And not only that, but didn't recently the taxpayers of Broome County fund improvements to that facility to the tune of $7.5 million?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we just put 7.5 million in it, and we gave someone not only money to run the place, but the ability to buy it for less money than the improvement costs.
Exactly.
Is that right? Do I have that right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the math.
Okay, and that's a good deal. So
well,
if I have a
house,
and I can't manage my house very well, I do $50,000 worth of improvements to a $100,000 house, and then I give you the right to buy the house for $45,000 for the next 6 years. That's somehow a good deal.
Exactly. Well, that's progressive politics. Now, Garner has, on balance, he's kept taxes at zero or even reduced, but something like this, you got to ask yourself, why? Just like with the Vestal supervisor, why press this agenda? The Bun Hill student housing projects. Is there something else? Does this out of town organization interested in the Willow Point nursing home? Is there something else? On the surface here, it smells.
Well, yeah, it smells. It does not pass the sniff test at all. Both the nursing home and, as you now morphed into, the management of the town of Vestal. How is it that a part-time supervisor of the town makes a salary pushing $100,000? How, when you combine everything, how is that?
Only in New York State.
I mean, he makes more than the mayor of the city of Binghamton.
Yeah, and the electorate's asleep. That's all you could say. The residents of Vestal must like it. They must
Well, they
like
must
these high
like it
taxes.
because, when I showed up there with one of our colleagues from Citizens for a Better Broome for the
Mhm.
vote, if you will, it was really nothing of the sort. It was just pushed through at the whim of the supervisor. But, deciding to give the departing police chief in Vestal $250,000 in lifetime health care. There were very few people from Vestal there. Of course, they did it in the middle of the night in a rainstorm.
Yeah, exactly.
And wouldn't let anybody in but 4 people, and then didn't let anybody speak until after they voted. So yeah, they must like it. And these poor guys that are fighting this Bun Hill project, I mean, they've spent thousands of dollars of their own money to win in court the first battle, but there's endless resources in Vestal apparently to fight back legally. So good luck with that. I don't know what's going to happen there, Andy, but I applaud those people in Vestal for fighting back. And I would say to the people who run Vestal now, stop it. Okay. The people have spoken. Stop it. The project shouldn't go there.
Well, there needs to be a primary in the Vestal Democratic politics. Somebody's got to come forward. And I would wager that that is going to happen based on straw vote of sorts that we've spoke with various elected officials. We'll see what happens.
Well, you've got to have someone in there that's got the best interest of the taxpayers in mind and not their own self-interest. And I think clearly, just on its face, you can see that there's something going on there that is unsavory and needs to come to an end. But people, you've got to stand up. This is your government, and as one of our founders said years ago, we end up getting the government that we deserve. And
exactly,
it's a harsh reality, but that's the fact. If you don't pay attention, nature abhors a vacuum. Something bad will fill it, and in many cases, we have lots of that as an example here in Broome County. So, Andy, I think we about wrapped it up for today. Folks, again, our presence is on Facebook. You can see us there. We post up. We answer questions. There's been some people asking about our meetings. They're the first Monday of the month here coming up in April. It'll be 6 p.m. at Thirsty's Tavern over on the south side of Binghamton. Everyone is welcome. We have food and drink and good conversation. And again, like us on Facebook, bobkingsley.com for a lot of written material. And we will see you next week, folks.
Great. Thank you.